And just an absolute pleasure and honor to share the stage with so many distinguished speakers and people working on such important issues around resilience and local economies. I'm particularly delighted to be in the place where my career as a social entrepreneur started. As Ali mentioned, I was a recipient of a social entrepreneurship fellowship and a deep wilderness experience in Sun Valley, a local organization called The Wild Gift, founded by my dear friend and mentor, Bob Jonas. So it's very gratifying to come back here. And I think Amy, the reason Amy and Ali wanted me to speak today was to really talk about one example, a proven sort of solution to help address some of the ecological and public health concerns surrounding our food system. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about the broader context. I think at this point this audience is very fluent in all the issues facing the agricultural system and the importance of sustainable food and agriculture. But just want to set the stage, and then I'm going to talk about our company as a successful example of resilient, sustainable, profitable urban food production. So agriculture has an enormous impact on the natural world. It's the largest consumer of land on the planet. It's the largest consumer of fresh water on the planet. Approximately 70% of the world's fresh water withdrawals go toward agriculture. It's the leading source of global water pollution. We heard about the dead zones that are created through agricultural runoff, and it contributes to about 20% of greenhouse gas emissions. On top of that, we have several major trends that are expected to put further, or are putting further strain on the global food system and going to put additional pressure on the environment. One is population growth. As we all know, according to official UN estimates, the population will be 9 billion people by 2050. 70% of those will be urban dwellers. So urbanization requires that food, once it's grown, harvested, and packaged, has to be transported great distances to reach urban consumers, which degrades quality, causes environmental impact with that transportation, and ultimately leads to a lot of waste. Public health concerns. Poor diets and diet-related diseases are the #1 cause of death in this country. And there was a great quote there by Jamie Oliver. 0.8% of deaths are homicides. Diet-related disease deaths are over 60%, but not enough people are talking about it. And food waste. We're just throwing so much of our food away. 50% of the food that we produce in this country is thrown away, which is just a criminal waste of resources, as well as just very unjust to people who are food insecure. So it's kind of doom and gloom. However, we are at a really, really interesting time in food. Investment in agricultural technology and sustainable and natural food is at an all-time high. Policymakers, industrialists, elected officials, academics, entrepreneurs are all putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of effort into finding more sustainable ways to grow and feed our growing population. So within the broad context of sustainable agriculture, there's a subset of that which is urban agriculture. Now, urban agriculture traditionally has been more community-driven, education-driven, a gathering place for people in communities to come around, great educational aspects. But my partners and I wanted to see if we could do urban agriculture on a commercial scale. Kind of a crazy idea. So that's what we did. We built and designed and built and now operate the state-of-the-art, technologically advanced urban greenhouse facility in the heart of one of the most densest populated and built-up cities in the world, New York City. The thesis was, if we could grow local food consistently and reliably of a premium quality and grow it with a small environmental impact, consumers would rally around that. So rather than eating greens and tomatoes that are a week old, that are shipped from California or Mexico, New York, why not eat a locally produced product that's fresh, healthy, nutritious, and grown with a small environmental footprint? So that's essentially what our company does. We design and develop these greenhouses and operate them. Now, New York City doesn't have a lot of arable land, and it doesn't have a lot of space. There's a lot of competing real estate interests. So we started looking at rooftops as this viable alternative. Vastly underutilized space. So finally convinced a building owner after 2 years to let us lease their rooftop for about 40 years and build this state-of-the-art greenhouse on it. So the enabling technology here is known as controlled environment agriculture. So controlled environment agriculture is a combination of horticultural and engineering techniques that provides for very consistent crop production, production efficiency, and crop quality. Plants are grown in a very secure, safe, healthy way, which can be very cost effective. So we have sensors located all over these greenhouses that are tracking temperature, humidity, light level, CO2, oxygen, a number of other variables. And all that data is fed to a computer control system, which we've programmed with algorithms and proprietary sort of climate recipes to turn equipment on and off to achieve these optimal growing conditions for the plants. It's Fancy way of saying these are very coddled, spoiled plants, okay? They're getting exactly what they need whenever they need it. And as a result, we can grow amazing yield in a small footprint. So 1 acre of greenhouse results in about 30 acres of field production, the equivalency. So that's 29 acres of farmland preservation. That's 10 times less water used in conventional farming. Specifically, we're using a hydroponic growing technique, so that's a solution that we selected because you don't need soil. We dissolve nutrients in the irrigation water that provides the nutrition and the dissolved oxygen in the water to the crops. We recycle all of that irrigation water for reuse, so it's a closed loop system, so it allows us to use about 10 times less water than conventional farming. And as persistent drought becomes more of an issue in places like California, where most of our food comes from, we believe this form of farming is going to have a greater role to play. Now, to solve global food system issues, there's not going to be a panacea, silver bullet, and this certainly isn't it. But it's one potential solution, and I think all solutions need to be very much tailored to their unique geographical, economic, social context. And we believe that hyper-local, urban, controlled environment agriculture has a role to play in feeding our cities. So we now have 4 greenhouse facilities across New York City and Chicago. We grow about 20 million heads of leafy greens per year, serving those local markets. We also have a consumer good, which you'll see in retail stores. We also have products that we sell to restaurants, supermarkets, institutional food service providers. This is how the products might be sold. And the reason why retailers really like this is it's a very consistent, reliable supply of fresh local produce. So, for instance, during Hurricane Sandy in New York City, Gotham Greens produce was the only brand of produce available in about 25 supermarkets for 3 days. Talk about resilience, right? Thanks. And if we can grow it under very high standards of food safety and environmental sustainability, consumers will rally around it. Consumers want to support their local economies. They want to spend their dollars closer to home. And they don't want to buy their food from sort of anonymous agribusiness that doesn't have a lot of transparency. And consumers have shown this over the years. And because of that, we're working with large national retailers, Target, Amazon, Whole Foods, and then regional and local retailers as well. So we got started in 2009, built our first facility in Brooklyn in 2011. Produce was selling like hotcakes. We couldn't grow it fast enough, so now we subsequently built 3 more greenhouses and are building 3 more over the next 12 months. So our farms are unique. The top left was the first one that we built. Sort of represents this innovative, adaptive reuse of urban space, provides jobs. The second one on the top right was a really unique project. We actually partnered with Whole Foods Market. So this represents a really interesting corporate partnership with a real estate developer to be able to actually grow produce at the source of where it's sold. So this notion of food miles really gets converted to food footsteps. So 365 days of the year, produce is brought down in an elevator and put directly onto the shelf. The third project in the bottom left is in an area of Jamaica, Queens. It's about a 60,000 square foot greenhouse. It was inaugurated by Governor Andrew Cuomo last year. And then the bottom right corner is our first expansion outside of New York City to Chicago, the 3rd largest city in the country, a very cold weather place that the climate doesn't really allow for year-round local food production. So we thought it was a great market to go to. And there's another really interesting corporate real estate partnership with a company called Method Products, which makes eco-friendly soaps and detergents, a San Francisco-based company that wanted to create this lead manufacturing plant that really represented 21st century manufacturing and going beyond just the very conspicuous things like renewable energy. They wanted to really work towards sustainable food, so they're a really, really great partner. We primarily focus on leafy greens, highly, highly perishable food crops that often don't last very long in your fridge. So we can harvest 365 days of the year, deliver it to a customer within 24 hours, and then that affords them like 2 to 3 weeks of shelf life. So it really helps out a lot. So these aren't ordinary greenhouses, though. Greenhouse technologies existed for a long time. It's practiced on a commercial scale in many parts of the world. And that was really important to us. We wanted to use robust technology that we could deploy and really provide consumers with a very reliable product. But our greenhouses are unique. We have a lot of interesting energy-saving and water-saving innovations that are unique to our company. So the yields that we get are incredibly high, as I mentioned earlier. We get about 24 to 25 crop turns per year. We can grow a head of lettuce in about 30 days. Out in the field, it takes about 60 days. Our greenhouses are 100% powered by renewable electricity. either on-site PV or wind, and the balance is purchased through renewable energy credits. As I mentioned, we recycle all of our irrigation water, and we can basically produce 50% more crop than conventional greenhouses with 25% less energy per pound of crop produced. We're completely pesticide-free. We actually use beneficial insects. So we release predator insects in our greenhouses to prey on the bad bugs. And we are able to cut out the food miles, the long-distance transportation, and all the associated emissions that sort of come with that. And we're able to eliminate all kinds of agricultural runoff as well, which is the leading source of global water pollution. So this is that first project I talked to you about in Brooklyn, 15,000 square feet. This is the second one that we did with Whole Foods, which is a really cool project. This is 20,000 square feet. The third one in Queens, 60,000 feet. And then this is 80,000 feet in Chicago. So this represented an $8 million investment in the south side of Chicago, an area called Pullman, very economically underdeveloped and recently designated as a national historic monument by President Obama, given the industrial past there. It was the first company town in America where the Pullman coaches were made. And we've produced over 50 full-time jobs for Southside residents there. So, just some numbers, and this is, I run the risk of, being a little salesy here, but this is more just to demonstrate that even though we're this sort of mission-driven social enterprise, we can also be a resilient, sustainable business that makes a compelling investment opportunity as well. So we have 170,000 square feet. We've raised almost $30 million until date, and our revenue growth has been 400% just over this last year. 65% compounded annual growth rate. We have about 135 full-time employees, and all of our facilities are cash flow positive. So, doing good, there's that thing that you can do well by doing good, and this is a perfect example of that. So now that we have a proven model, we're looking to expand outside of the two regions that we're active in. The states in green represent states where our products are available and where we sell. So the 3 greenhouses in New York service the New York tri-state area, and then our greenhouse in Chicago services about 6 Midwestern states. Nebraska is just one store, but that's on there nonetheless. So our goal and our vision is to create this network of greenhouses across the country to serve those local markets with fresh local produce, but not feel like a national brand, but really feel like a local brand in those markets. So for example, in New York, our products have New York sounding names. We have the Queens Crisp, we have the Brooklyn Iceberg, we've got the Greenpoint Oak Leaf. We co-brand with local organizations and partner with food rescue organizations, environmental education organizations like Green Bronx Machine or New York Restoration Project. We work with the state's Department of Agriculture and their Pride of New York program. And it's run by New Yorkers for New Yorkers and people in that area. So it really has a local flair and local sort of partnerships. In the Chicago and the Midwest market, similarly, we've got products like the Chicago Crisp and the Windy City Crunch. And we partner with organizations that are active there, like the Kitchen Community, Pilot Light, the Greater Chicago Food Depository. So the idea is to really strengthen, have local partnerships, and to be an authentic, transparent, mission-driven local partner that helps the local economy. Some examples of working with the community: we donate almost 1 million seedlings a year to community gardens and school gardens across the country, and just the pedagogical value of plants in the classroom, and just the field trips that we host, and seeing underprivileged inner city kids come into our greenhouse and just their mind be blown, like how a cucumber grows or how a tomato grows or how a basil plant grows. It's really interesting to see. Food insecurity is a major issue, so we donate about 1% of the product that we grow gets donated to hunger relief organizations that goes to helping feed the food insecure. Unique local marketing collaborations. So in New York, we sell to Shake Shack, or we sell at Yankee Stadium and places like that, and so on and so forth. So again, just really important to have strong local economies and local partnerships, excuse me. And I'm really, really pleased that controlled environment agriculture is now taking on many different forms and applications, and we're really proud of the path that we've helped blaze in this space. Like I said, greenhouse agriculture is not necessarily new, but now there's all these different variations of controlled environment agriculture. The top left is a really unique project that some of you may know. It's called the Vertical Harvest Project in Jackson Hole. It's a really strong community-supported project that grows local food for that mountain resort community, works with underprivileged people and people with disabilities to run the greenhouse, so that's a great example. People are repurposing shipping containers to grow food. There's examples of restaurants growing their own food. This idea of vertical farming is very exciting. It's in its infancy. I was delighted to see that it was one of the solutions listed in Paul's project's drawdown, 100 solutions. So the concept of vertical farming is similar to greenhouse agriculture, controlled environment agriculture, but it's actually growing within a warehouse environment using artificial light, where you can control a lot of the variables like a greenhouse, but you could actually grow vertically, really take advantage of vertical space. And we get about a 30x yield per square foot, and the thesis of vertical farming is you can get up to 100x yield. So unproven, but still a very, very exciting technology. And I'm really happy to be working with Ali and Mayor Jonas here in Ketchum to try to work on a greenhouse project that can serve the local community here as well. And that sort of concludes it. I mean, controlled environment agriculture, like I said, is not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all these issues, but it's one way, it's one solution. And there are challenges. It's a high capital cost, requires a great degree of technical skill to operate these facilities. There's regulatory barriers, zoning, and things like that. But I'm very optimistic that now that companies like ours have proven this concept, there's probably 36 companies now around the world working on some variation of urban commercial scale agriculture. And just sort of to kind of finish up here and close, I want to come full circle to the Wild Gift, that organization that really got me started. And probably the most defining part of that fellowship was not just the dollars that I received to go on and start my first social enterprise, which was a solar PV company, but was the experience that I had in the wilderness, in the mountains around here. And I want to really thank Colin, I know he's not here, but for what he said yesterday, is that the impact that wild nature can have in resilience and fostering these values of sustainability and resilience. So I'm very thankful to this community for what it's provided me, and hopefully we'll have a greenhouse in Sun Valley pretty soon. Thank you.